And our opening words are by Teresa Gusillo Gallardo. Let us reach the place of self, the place that is not alien to truth. Let us wash over with peace and serenity, with fierce longing for light and heart, with living strength flowing in our veins, bring ourselves into fearlessness and into trust. May it be so. Now, before I go on, I want to make sure that all of you have one of these. If you didn't get one on your way in, there's some at the table downstairs, and you have a minute to run and get one, or have someone get one for you. And I'll explain. This morning in New York City, world leaders are coming together for a UN summit on the climate crisis. UN Secretary General Ban Ki-moon is urging governments to support an ambitious global agreement to dramatically reduce global warming pollution. And this morning in New York City, more than 100,000 people are taking to the streets as part of the People's Climate March to demand a world with an economy that works for people and for the planet. A world safe from the ravages of climate change, a world with good jobs, clean air and water, and healthy communities. Outside of New York, more than 2,000 solidarity events are taking place worldwide. It's bringing together people from all different walks of life, all of them united in a call for action to protect our environment. UU Meeting House member Wave is on the streets of New York right now, part of that massive flood of people demanding that our leaders pay attention to the earth. Now, leading up to the climate march, Wave has been doing some performance art out front of Town Hall. Maybe some of you have seen him there. So I thought it might be fun for us to do a little performance art of our own as a way of being in solidarity with him as he participates in the climate march. It's a way for us to add our energy to the event from afar. Each of you were given a green ribbon as you came in, and you'll need that now. Here's the plan. You got yours? Okay. As I share this reading for the earth, you will need to listen closely for the word earth. Each time I say earth, raise your ribbon in the air and repeat earth. Remember, this is performance art. So channel, wave, and be as enthusiastic as you can as we unite our energies and send them to policymakers this week that are discussing the future of our earth. Earth! You got it. That was a test. Some of you passed. Are you ready? Gravity holds us as we spin on the invisible axis of this beautiful blue-green earth. Majestic mountains, rolling plains, deep oceans, all meet together to decorate the surface of this life-sustaining earth. Fresh water, breathable air, bounteous harvests, all gifts of our one generous earth. Strong and generative, but also precious, fragile, desperate, is our home, this planet Earth. Rising river, rising sun, living river, determined seed. As she protects us, so we are called to protect her. We send energy to clear the ears of our leaders. We send energy to them to use good minds. May their decisions result in the actions we need to reduce climate change in time. Together we sound the alarm for our Earth. We rise with the dawning of a new day to take part in the effort to save our beloved Earth. We come together as her children to love and protect our Mother Earth. 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 Yay. Our prayer this morning is by Max Kapp. Often I have felt that I must praise my world for what my eyes and ears have seen these many years, and what my heart has loved. And often I have tried to start my lines, "Dear Earth," I say, and then I pause to look once more. Soon I am bemused and far away in wonder, so I never get beyond, "Dear Earth." Let this be our prayer this morning. Dear Earth. If anyone else has been staying up late every night this week watching the Roosevelt documentary, I was moved by that series of documentaries to pick a reading by Eleanor Roosevelt this morning. She wrote a book called You Learn by Living, and this is from the opening chapter. When one attempts to set down in bald words any answers one has found to life problems, there is a great risk of appearing to think that one's answer is either the only one or the best one. This, of course, would be nonsense. I have no such all-inclusive wisdom to offer, only a few guideposts that have proved helpful to me in the course of a long life. Perhaps they may steer someone away from the pitfalls into which I stumbled, or help them to avoid the mistakes I have made. Or perhaps one can learn only by one's own mistakes. The essential thing is to learn. Learning and living. But they are really the same thing, aren't they? There is no experience from which you can't learn something. When you stop learning, you stop living in any vital and meaningful sense. And the purpose of life, after all, is to live it, to taste experience to the utmost, to reach out eagerly and without fear for newer and richer experience. You can do that only if you have curiosity, an unquenchable spirit of adventure. The experience can have meaning only if you understand it. You can understand it only if you have arrived at some knowledge of yourself. A knowledge based on a deliberately and usually painfully acquired self-discipline, which teaches you to cast out fear and frees you for the fullest experience of the adventure of life. One's philosophy is not best expressed in words. It is expressed in the choices one makes. In stopping to think through the meaning of what I have learned, there is much I believe intensely, much I am unsure of. But this, at least, I believe with all my heart. In the long run, we shape our lives and we shape ourselves. The process never ends until we die, and the choices we make are ultimately our own responsibility. Eleanor Roosevelt, Hyde Park, January 1960. Even after all this time, the sun never says to the earth, "You owe me." Look what happens with a love like that. It lights up the whole sky. Hafiz. It can be draining, this constant charting of accounts. Who owes who what? How much she has compared to me. How many more times I've showed up than him. What if our only calculation was this? What is the most generous response I can have to this situation? Greg Cozier works at the University of Victoria in Canada. He can rattle on easily about the research being done by the graduate students in the biology department, about the intricacies of their work on Gaucher disease or Sanfilippo syndrome. He is a constant presence in the room as the students defend their master's and doctoral theses. He awards one of the most coveted prizes at the university and hosts a dinner for 12 honored students each year at a Victoria restaurant, funded out of his own pocket. Greg Kozier works at the University of Victoria in Canada. He is the night janitor. Although Kozier's learning disability made it a challenge to get through the 10th grade, he managed to get a job as a restaurant dishwasher, then a janitor. That led to the night custodian job at the university 17 years ago. A man of few resources, he is always generous with the starving students who he sees working late into the night. They're kind of in his way as he tries to clean, but they are so focused, so determined. He gives them little gifts to keep their spirits up. The university is a wonderful place to work, he says, full of youth and energy. He enjoys the transformation as first-year students gradually find their focus in grad school. It's their stick-to-itness that he admires, and it's that quality that he wants to reward. Thanks to Kozier, biology grad students now find themselves eligible to win the Custodian's Trophy. He awards it to the student who he, as night custodian, most often sees burning the midnight oil. He also awards the dinner for 12 to the best speaker at the annual grad student symposium and a $200 scholarship to a student working in microbiology. The dinners and scholarships cost Kozier about $600 a year. I save up, he says. It makes me feel good. He's a really interesting guy, says David Stuss, whose late-night work on the neurological disorder Rett syndrome made him the most recent Custodian's Trophy winner. Kozier's curiosity, his involvement in the grad students' research is remarkable, Stuss says. Perhaps the most remarkable thing about him, though, is his generosity. What is the most generous response I can have to this situation? A few years ago, my uncle and father were both in the hospital for operations on the same day. While we nervously waited in the family room at Mass General, my aunt and cousins were doing the same at a Washington, D.C. hospital. My uncle's surgery was made more complicated because he has von Willebrand disease. It's a factor VIII blood clotting disorder. The 3 separate surgical procedures he was undergoing required the intravenous administering of a blood clotting drug called Humate P. It's the drug hemophiliacs use to assist in their clotting. It's such an expensive drug that generally hospitals do not stock it. Hemophiliacs maintain their own stock and buy it directly from pharmacies that have it. Humate P comes in a complex kit that requires assembling to ensure the various parts of the formula are correctly mixed and properly prepared prior to being intravenously given. It's an assembly so complex that if you have not done it before, you're in big trouble. And that's what happened early in the morning during the preparation for my uncle's surgery. Arriving before 5 a.m. with a 6-pack cooler of Humate P, he was greeted by nurses who were totally dumbfounded by the instructions. Humate P is made by a German company, so the instructions are an English translation, making it more confusing. The family watched as a group of nurses held up various parts, trying all kinds of different combinations to put them together. Finally, everyone agreed that they needed to call the hematology clinic, who in turn called their head nurse, who during the summers ran camps for children suffering from hemophilia. When she received the call, the nurse was on a city bus. My uncle was headed into surgery. She went forward and explained the situation to the bus driver. We'll never know exactly what the conversation was between the nurse and the bus driver, but we do know that the bus driver broke his route and delivered her to the door of the hospital. She rushed to the surgery prep space, quickly grabbed all of the parts and adeptly put them together and administered the humate pee. I hope the bus driver didn't get into any trouble. Maybe in that moment of decision, he asked himself, what is the most generous response I can have to this situation? A one-paragraph newspaper article describes a subway platform during the morning rush hour at Grand Central Terminal. A train pulls in, a well-dressed woman gets off. Before the doors close, the woman realizes that she is holding only one of her leather gloves. She looks back into the train and spots the matching one on a seat. It's obviously too late to dash in to retrieve it. So with a cavalier shrug, she flings her arm out, and as the doors are about to close, tosses her one glove onto the seat alongside its mate. The doors shut, and the train pulls away. In his book, The Generosity Path, Mark Ewerts tells us that generosity is something that we can cultivate within ourselves. We are not just born with a certain level of charity or understanding in our hearts. We don't just learn it from our families, although we do in part learn it there. It's something that can be grown and fostered and trained. It begins by being generous with ourselves, he says. Beginning your day with some fulfilling self-care will build your balance and clarity so that you are more able to address what you encounter during the day. That might be a few minutes staying in your warm, cozy bed before starting the day. It could mean prayer or meditation first thing in the morning, or a walk to see the dawning light and smell the morning air. Mornings are often times of rushing and frustration, so be gentle and create joy for yourself and your family by finding a way to be gracious, he says. It will color the rest of your day. Ewert also reminds us that feeling gratitude is what opens our hearts in order to share with others. Feeling blessed enables us to share our blessings more freely. Not feeling particularly blessed today? Think about the planet that we are living on, he tells us. This brings us right back to where we were at the beginning of the service, Earth. Remember that in spite of its struggles, this planet is an incredible gift to us all, he says. It provides sustenance, pleasure for all of our senses, and infinite variety. We are surrounded by this beauty, which is ever-changing and recurring, so we can experience familiar pleasures repeatedly. Think sunsets and moonrises, the changing tides in the marshes, millions of stars becoming visible each night. Blessed. Our birth was a fortunate gift from our parents and the spark of life that supported that conception, he says. Our bodies and minds are miraculous systems that allow us to create, understand, calculate, and dream. Each person is born with the ability to seek and find satisfaction, no matter their circumstances. People love us, and we love other people. We are the beneficiaries of generations of inventors and designers who have created wonderful processes and objects that make our lives easier. Millions of thinkers and teachers have gone before us, and we are the inheritors of that knowledge. Blessed. Once we recognize the richness of our own blessings, we are better able to be generous. Generous with our listening, generous with our kindness, generous with our time, generous with our money, generous with our patience, our understanding, our energy. There are experiences and people and places that help us on our generosity path, says Ewert. There are people who model it for us. Experiences that reinforce how good it feels. Negative experiences even that teach us to be generous in different, more intentional or more boundaried ways. Church is one of those places where our giving can be nurtured, cultivated, nuanced, where we are asked to be intentional about our generosity, where we work out how to give energy without being burned out, where we are pushed to be more spacious in our acceptance of others, where we are exposed to hundreds of social justice causes and challenged to choose just a few to commit to wholeheartedly, where we are asked to give financially not just once, but each week in an ongoing commitment to building and sustaining a community. This fostering of generosity is what enables this place to be here. We are 100% reliant on your generosity. But it is also a mission of this faith community to grow generosity in each of us so that we can be better stewards of this earth, better friends to each other, better citizens of our larger communities, better listeners and neighbors and parents and caretakers and activists and politicians and teachers and dog walkers and nurses and janitors and bus drivers. We come to this place for many reasons. One reason is that we are on a generosity path, and it helps to have places and people in our lives that encourage us to take steps toward more generous living. Places and people that ask us to be intentionally generous, building that generosity muscle until giving is more and more natural to us. So that one day, when we are getting off a subway and we realize that we've left our favorite glove inside, our natural, instinctive reaction will not be to clutch the remaining glove in sadness and loss, but to fling it through the closing door so that if we can no longer have them, at least someone else can. What is the most generous response I can have to this situation? This morning, I thank you all for your generosity. I thank you for coming here on Sundays with your heart open to the messages you receive here, even when having an open heart is hard. I thank you for showing up for each other, driving community members to doctor's appointments, dropping off a meal to someone who is ill, being a shoulder to cry on when someone is sad. I thank you for being generous with your time, attending committee meetings, raking leaves in the yard, writing for the newsletter, reworking contracts for our renters. I thank you for being generous with your energy, for marching in the Family Pride Parade, swinging a hammer at Habitat for Humanity work days, signing petitions and traveling to the State House to protest the Pilgrim nuclear power plant. I thank you for being generous with your financial gifts, for pledging your support to this meeting house in the fall of each year, and putting your offering in the plate each Sunday so that we can open our doors every week to so many people who need us. I thank you for being on a generosity path, for continuously reminding yourselves of the blessings that surround you, for continuously finding new ways to be open and giving to the world, often asking nothing in return. Even after all this time, the sun never says to the earth, "You owe me." Look what happens with a love like that. It lights up the whole sky. Amen, and blessed be.